I'm all projected and ready to share screen. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Julie, and everyone there. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's IoT New York meetup. Great to see you, even though I couldn't be there in person today, but definitely appreciate everyone showing. My name is Linda Drabick, and I'm the founder and organizer of the meetup. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and kick off the event, and then I'll be handing it off to the folks at Microsoft and then Internet Society, and then we will, as quickly as possible, move that along so that we can hear the guy you're all here to hear from, Olaf Kolkman. So thanks, everybody, again. And I'm now about to share my screen. Might take a moment. Okay, let's see.
We see you.
Great. Okay, and you see the deck. Wonderful. Okay, great. Well, yes, so this is our usual slide here. Just as a reminder, the hashtag for tonight's event is IoTNY. I have my Twitter handle up there at Linda Drabick. Feel free to keep in touch, or obviously, if you copy me on this, I can retweet what you're saying to the rest of the members, and we'll keep this rolling along. There we go. Okay, great. So our topic this month, it's our 43rd monthly meetup. It's great to have such a great community like everyone there. I know that every month we get new folks and then we have veterans of the group. So it's really great to have different folks in the mix. Hopefully, I know we kicked off a little later than expected tonight, but hopefully you've had a chance to chat with others. You'll find it's a welcoming community, really something for everyone in terms of whether you're more technically functioned or functional role or into strategy. So you'll see that through our range of topics each month. And I just remind folks that, you know, I established this meetup to really be about digging further into different topics of IoT. So it's really here for you guys, for the community. So as you see topics each month, feel free to reach out to me if you find that there's a topic that you want to dig into or that you want to propose, and I definitely welcome that feedback. Great. So for tonight, I know we're starting off a little late, but I know we had some great food, drinks, and discussion. Again, this 6:50 to 7 p.m. I know we're starting a little late, but I will make sure to speed my part up. It's just really running through this deck to welcome everyone, introduce the topic, recognize our sponsors, and also leave a few minutes in case any members have an announcement or an ask of others in the community. So that's my part there. When I'm done with, at the end of this deck, I'll hand it off to Mary Baker, who's the community evangelist at Microsoft, and she'll say a few words, let you guys know how Microsoft is involved in IoT. And then she'll then, let's see, she will then pass it along to Shuli, who is a leader at Internet Society, and she'll let us know a little bit about Internet Society, and then we'll be introducing Olaf. Olaf, his talk is the main event tonight. We're very lucky to have him. Olaf, welcome. I know you're in town after some long flying, so we're really glad to have you here. Olaf is going to be discussing online trust and privacy by design. And since he's, you know, a very well-regarded leader in a very well-regarded organization, Internet Society, I know he has lots of insights to share with us. And I know that lots of people in the community are interested in, you know, there's different ways to kind of approach online trust and privacy. And since Internet Society has, you know, been very much at the forefront of how the internet has evolved, he's a great person to speak on the topic. So we're very lucky to have Olaf with us tonight. And then finally, at the end, we'll have a few minutes for further networking and wrap up. And then I just ask that please, at the end of the evening, please respect, you know, when staff members at Microsoft might need to clear the room, let's just please be respectful of that. And folks are definitely more than welcome to continue the discussion. I know there's a few other venues, whether it's a pub or a cafe nearby, that, you know, definitely you're welcome to continue any discussions you might have underway. We always tend to have lots of great, you know, chats afterwards, and it's a good problem to have if people are so engaged in IoT and kind of trading ideas that we need to kind of move the party onward outside of the main venue. So that's the overview of tonight. So a big thank you to our sponsors for this month. So again, Internet Society, and we're really glad to have lined up this sponsorship with when Olaf is in town to address our membership. Microsoft has been a really great partner in terms of opening up their environment there. Many of you will remember that I believe it was last month. Yes, last month we had one of their tech evangelists speak and gave a really great, interesting deep dive. So Microsoft has been great in terms of both content and just supporting our community by providing the venue. And then a relatively new sponsor is Autodesk, and we appreciate their support as well. So thank you again to the sponsors. And again, at the end, we'll be hearing from two individuals, one from Microsoft and one from Internet Society before Olaf goes on. So thank you guys. Okay. So just to keep things rolling along, I always mention that we have a discussion tab on the internet interface, on the Meetup interface, and I encourage everyone to check that out throughout the month, because I'll get lots of different announcements, discount codes, even job and career opportunities. And we have a very strong community. We're approaching 5,000 members. And so because of that, a lot of companies and individuals will reach out to me as the organizer, and I'll definitely want to be sharing that along. So you can check out the discussion board throughout the month. Some of these, all these announcements will be on the discussion board, but when we're all kind of congregated, I like to call a few of these out just to kind of put it on your radar. So again, you can feel free to take snapshots of the screen for these next few, but also know that you can find them on the discussion board. So just a first kind of plug, definitely please reach out to me if your team's interested in presenting, or if you have different topic ideas, because again, I'm very open to your feedback and want to make the topics relevant to what our community is looking for. You can contact me via the Meetup platform, or you can message me on Twitter at Linda Drabik. Okay. Great. So I'm not sure how many folks have been to Internet of Things World, but I went, I believe it was 2 years ago. It was a great conference, and they were sponsoring last month. So anyone who was here last month at the meetup got to hear a little bit about it. But just as a reminder, they're offering a 20% discount code for all of our members. The discount code is IoTNY, and that's going to be out in California, May 16th through 18th. Okay. Another note, I had sent this through as part of the email to everyone. I believe it was last week. There's a Global Dev Fest conference, June 2nd to 3rd. There's going to be plenty of IoT experts. You'll have the opportunity to potentially book one-to-one mentoring sessions. And the nice thing is, if you can't attend all or some of the talks, they are video on demand and available later on. So you can check out the event at that link below. And just wanted to make you all aware of that. And then there's also a contact Justin at Be My App for any questions. Great. Okay. Actually, that's better. Okay, great. Another note, Data Camp. Anyone interested in data science? There's over 100 hours of interactive courses on Python for data science. The URL is there at the top of the page, and let's see. They're offering up to 1 month of premium access. So just a note, feel free to pass that along to others who may be interested, but I like to spread the word if there's free or discounted resources out there. Every month I tend to note different maker spaces. I know a contact from JC Fab Lab was there last month. I'm not sure if you're there this month, but a few different maker or kind of design spaces. So there's Hack Manhattan, there's Skill Mill, and JC Fab Lab in Jersey City. So definitely feel free to check them out. Whether you're deep into prototyping or you want to just really get into the space, it could be a really useful resource. Great. Okay. So now I'm going to open it up, and Julie, I know you're on the other side there, so you can probably see the room and potentially take any folks that are raising their hand for member announcements and asks. So every month we like to just open up the floor for a few minutes. So if you guys out there, if you could raise your hand if you have an announcement to make or an ask to make of other members, that can be letting people know that you're working on an interesting project or prototype. You might be trying to solve a specific technical or design challenge, or you might be looking for interesting opportunities. So I'll turn it back to you guys for this section, then you can let me know when that's wrapped. Thanks.
So I'm gonna hook you back in this way. Can you hear us still?
I can hear you, yep.
Good. There are no questions, so to see?
No us? No one? Okay. You'll do one?
All right. This way.
I forget where I had the camera pointed now, but I've been having a busy week and 2 of them, yes. And what I want to say is that on Friday and Saturday and Sunday I'll be working the Space Apps Challenge up at the SAP thing, and it's totally sold out. But on the Friday there's a whole day conference, and I will be live streaming that, and you can go to livestream.com/Internet Society, and it'll be there, and my mind goes blank after that, but that's what I've got going the next 3 days, so go to that.
Great, thanks, Charlie.
So now I believe
No more any other announcements or asks from anyone?
I don't believe so.
Okay, great. Well, since Jolly just made an announcement, I just want to also take a moment and please give Jolly a round of applause, guys, because he tirelessly works as a videographer. And he's obviously very involved in all aspects of the tech community, and he does us a great service by serving as videographer. He does a dual role of helping us as part of the meetup, but as you guys may know, Jolly is also deeply involved in Internet Society, and so it's only very fitting that this month when Internet Society is sponsoring that we recognize Jolly for all his hard work. So thanks again, Jolly. Give a quick round of applause. Great. Okay, thanks. And just a reminder, if you think of a new announcement or an ask, you guys are also welcome to post that to the discussion board as well on Meetup. Great. Okay, great. So at this point, just wanted to thank again our sponsors, and this might be the last you're seeing or hearing of me because I'm going to turn it over to Mary Baker, who's going to give a Microsoft welcome. She might switch up the computer if you have different screens up, and that's fine. And then Mary will then turn it over to Shuli, who will be speaking about letting you guys know a little bit about the Internet Society, and then teeing up Olaf for his talk. But again, thank you so much to everybody. Thanks for everyone for helping to coordinate. I apologize I couldn't be there in person this month, but really happy to have the team there seeing the rest of the event through. So please welcome Mary Baker from Microsoft.
And I will keep you just connected. I don't know whether that's sufficient in any way, but we'll see how that works.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll just minimize you from the screen in front. There you
Okay.
go. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Baker. I am a community evangelist with Microsoft's Developer Experience and Evangelism team. Has anyone heard of us before? No. It's such a weird title, isn't it?
Well, even Serve has the same title.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. So basically, our team is very deeply involved in the tech community, and we're super supportive of the community. We are our partners with IoT New York, and super supportive of you and those of you who have joined us from the Internet Society. We also do a lot of work with you. So I'm just here to reiterate our support of the community and let you know who I am and what I represent. And if you have any questions at any point about Microsoft in general or our developer strategy or anything in that realm, feel free to reach out to me. We basically cover everything from HoloLens to bot framework to, to IoT, to anything, Azure cloud. So a lot of developer technologies that our team engages very deeply with. We're a team of developers that go and speak to developers. So a very technical team. So yeah, that's us. I'd like to welcome you here, and I hope that you really enjoy the event tonight. And I'll pass it off to Shuli from the Internet Society.
Thank you.
It should probably work, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's a live stream element to
Oh,
it
okay.
as well. So.
Thank you, Mary. Well, I'll keep this short since we are running a little bit late, but thank you guys for coming. My name is Shuli Halleck. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Internet Society New York chapter. So just to clear up any confusion that might exist, Internet Society, where our guest speaker is from, is the global organization. And then we have over 110 chapters worldwide. So I'm with the New York chapter, as is Jolly back there. I joined about a year ago, so I've been helping put together a lot of our programming. The mission of the Internet in general is to promote the open development, evolution, and use of the internet for the benefit of all people throughout the world. And while that is broad, here in New York, we like to serve our local community, so we are working more at the intersection of tech, policy, and end users. We do a lot of events concerning digital privacy, helping end users understand all issues related to the internet so that we could better equip ourselves and make decisions that are right for us. And we are working a lot more with organizations, large and small, in the area. So again, I want to thank IoT New York for co-hosting this with us, for Microsoft and Mary, who just left, for hosting us in their beautiful space, for Jolly for live streaming, and Internet Society North America for sponsoring the event. And I'd like to thank Olaf for coming up to New York to speak with us. He's in town for a short while, and we're really thrilled to have him speak in New York. So as I introduce Olaf, let me give you a little bit of his background. Olaf Kolkman is the Chief Internet Technology Officer. He has the responsibility for leading Internet Society's strategic technical activities, particularly as they pertain to issues and opportunities for enhancing the Internet's evolution. Olaf has been actively involved with Internet technology since his astronomy studies during the early 90s. Internet became his professional focus in 1996 when he joined the RIPE NCC to develop the first version of what has become a worldwide test network. In 2007, he became the managing director of NL Net Labs. Under his responsibility, NL Net Labs produced open source products, performed research on technical issues with global impact, and contributed actively to the regional and global collaborative standard and governance bodies such as ICANN, RIPE, and IETF, and pushed the needle on the development and deployment of DNSSEC. Mr. Kolkman describes himself as an internet generalist and a vangineer, somebody who, with deep knowledge on some of the internet's technical aspects, who particularly enjoys bridging the technology society policy gaps.
Just stop there.
All right, well, other than that, he has a lot of notable accomplishments. You can read on his, I'll stop there, but you can read his bio on our website. And Olaf is based in the Netherlands where he lives with his family, so he's here joining us in New York. And without further ado, I'll pass it off.
Thank you. I have to work on that text. It's always embarrassing to hear other people stumble over my far too long line. There's something called the Hemingway editor, which might be of help with this. Let me start my deck here. So as far as I'm concerned, I hope that we engage a little bit in a conversation. Instead of me talking to you, that we at some point, get into questions, answers. The deck is there to hold the hand, so to speak, but it's not the guiding thing. If we divert, we divert. We're going to talk a little bit about trust. I want to do that in the IoT context, and I want to take that from an approach that we usually talk about when we talk about trust and security on the internet. First, a little bit about the Internet Society, founded in 1992 by internet pioneers. Vint Cerf, for instance, was one of the founders of the Internet Society. And our goal is to keep the internet open. and to make sure that the enabling properties, the internet as an enabler for social and economic good, remain there, and that it remains a platform for universal access. Open internet is something that has been near and dear to my heart. Everything that I know about the internet, I learned from the internet. My career is built on the internet, and that's why I work for this organization. Oops, what am I doing? This goes far too far. So, open internet, what is that again? So when we, a small query. Who of you considers themselves a systems guy or a developer? Okay, who considers themselves sort of a policy person? That's the same hands, actually. Coders? Network? Okay, the same hands go up all the time, so. What are the other people doing in terms of IoT? Is it a general interest, more or less, or involvement? Do you have a company that does IoT? Anybody? Just looking around, yeah. Anybody else want to? Use cases and solutions, okay. Just to get a feel who I'm talking with. But anyway, open internet. So when I talk about the internet, or when I started talking about the internet, I talked about, I think about it as the internet is a network of network that delivers IP and is loosely coupled from to the applications that use IP and provide the end-to-end user experience. These things have been evolving sort of independently. You know, networks are being built every day, go broke every day, I would almost say too. Currently about 60,000 ASs, I would say, maybe a little bit more, so 60,000 networks that make up the global network. And application providers and applications have been developed using the utility of the IP stack. TCP IP, DNS, routing, makes all that available. That's sort of the picture that we always think about, because this brings a number of properties. Obviously, you know, if you talk to the guys in the ITF, they have different pictures on how things have evolved. Some people say the waste of the hourglass is not IP anymore, but everything is tunneled across HTTP. Doesn't really matter. But that's the technical approach. The other approach is actually much more human, so to speak. It's an enabler for social good. I like this picture. This is a picture from the World Bank, I believe, of kids that are connected by the internet and basically get a good education and schooling because of the internet. That is a positive element of the internet. And when we think about the internet, we can say, you know, it's all because of IP, but I don't think that is the case. I think it's a number of properties that made the internet what it is. And those properties are well worth preserving, regardless of the underlying technology. So one of the things of the internet is that I hope that it will continue to evolve. From IPv4 to IPv6, or perhaps even other technologies that carry traffic end-to-end. No permanent favorites. It's one of the things that we hope is a property of the internet. In the services realm, that's sort of true. You know, a few years ago, everybody was saying, Second Life. Second Life, we need laws, property laws to apply in virtual spaces. Who has ever seen Second Life around in the last 3, 4, 5 months or half a year or so? Almost nobody. Things come and go. I'm not 100% sure if this is really an invariant, because there are very big companies nowadays that I don't see going anytime soon. There are some favorites that could be permanent, but anyway. Technically, the internet is built as a general purpose network. It's not being built for fax and voice, it's built for whatever runs on top of it. That's an important property. It provides global reach and a form of integrity in that global reach. If you put something on the internet at one side, it comes out at the other side. At least that's what you hope. You know, the protocol stack, the network is not completely reliable, but we have mechanisms to do that. You know, TCP with its acknowledgements and so on and so forth. It allows for permissionless innovation. That's an incredibly important property. Anybody can invent something and connect to that IP layer and know that they have end-to-end properties. When the web was invented, Tim Berners-Lee didn't have to call Vince saying, may I run this application on top of IP? No, that was just done. And I think that is still the case. I find a very good example Bitcoin and blockchains, because those are relatively new and profound development that were just spawned up on top of the internet. Now, of course, the technology alone doesn't really depend on the internet, but it could grow and it could connect because of the internet. Interoperable building blocks. There's no big blueprint of the internet. The internet is made out of standards, sort of horizontal standards. It's not designed in a vertical way, but there are building blocks that people build the internet from. I've been involved in standardization for quite a long time in the ITF, and there's this body within the ITF which is called the Internet Architecture Board. And I was elected to the board, and I thought, oh, now I get into the room, naive as I was, now I get into the room where the big blueprint is, where people actually think about how the internet is built on a big scale. That's of course not the case. The internet is built on principles, on little building blocks that can connect, on layered architecture, horizontal layered architecture. It's accessible, which means you can connect to it and you can expand it. If you are living in a place where there is no incumbent serving you IP, then you can set up a community network and still connect to the internet. These are all types of possibilities. There's no SAR on the internet that says you have to do this in order to interoperate. Interoperability happens because of mutual agreement, because of network effects, obviously. But there's nobody who says you have to do this. There's actually nobody that says you have to use the DNS to resolve names. You have to configure the IANA route to resolve names, but you better do it because otherwise you live on a different internet. And so that's sort of a mutual agreement, a social compact. And collaboration. Collaboration is very important still on the internet, specifically on the routing layer. Problems get solved by collaboration. Problems get, the interconnectivity mesh is based on collaboration, standardization based on collaboration. Security resolutions, the establishment of CSRTs based on collaboration. And I just mentioned the words security, because all these good properties also have their counterparts. The open platform makes that it is open for attack and intrusion. Everybody can build upon that, and they don't have to ask permission to attack and intrude. If you want to develop a piece of malware, you do that and you deploy. Its global reach means that a kid here in New York can control a botnet that is global and wreaks havoc in, say, India. Because there is voluntary collaboration in resolving these problems, it's very hard to mandate any type of solution. You cannot say you have to register in a central database before you access the internet. It doesn't work that way. And that creates problems in trust. This week the CIGI, the Center for International Governance and Innovation, and a club called Ipsos published a report, a survey. They did this for the second time, I believe. We co-sponsored this report. You can find it online. If you go to the homepage today of the Internet Society, internetsociety.org, it's linked from the homepage. But what I want to point out here is this weird pie chart. But this one I find very interesting. Overall, I trust the Internet. 56% agree with that statement. 43% of that 56% do that with a caveat. They basically say, yeah, I trust it, but. And only 12%, so this is not the full 100%, this is a weird type of graph, but only 12% strongly agree. There's really a trust issue with the Internet. There is, if you look at the report, there's a divergence, a gradient. Developed economies, the trust is lower than in less developed economies. Why that is, I do not really know. It's actually it's a nice report to see the state of things. And of the people who distrust the Internet, the leading reasons they believe it's not secure. The reason they don't trust it is that they say it's not secure. Yeah, Internet is controlled by corporate elites, 29%. Internet is controlled by my government, 28%. Internet does not allow me to communicate privately, 27%. This causes people to walk away from this medium. And remember, this medium brought us global, a form of global social interaction and global economy. I think that's a problem. Now, if it comes to security, there's something else with the Internet that makes it a little bit different than other security situations. Normally, if you think about security, you think about your assets and the risks to your assets and how you put in controls and defenses to protect those assets. That's an economic trade-off. You assess, what's it worth to me. How do I protect from that? Do I want insurance to externalize that risk, or to transfer that risk, or what do I do? But it's something that is about your assets. Security is normally about your assets. But in the Internet, if you don't take care of your security, your actions or inactions might cause damage to other people. In the IoT, we have recent examples in the IoT space. The Mirai botnet that infected cameras and home routers that started to attack the DIN company, and with DIN they took down Twitter and a bunch of other services for a day. Botnet of 100,000 devices with security properties that were already exploited in the 90s with the Morris worm. But not taking care of your perimeter or your security might have an impact on the rest of society, of the network. And I think that is something that we often overlook, and it's an important piece of establishing trust in the Internet. If we don't take care of that, the trust in the Internet will decline. And I think that the value of the Internet for us to do business and that economic stuff will also decline. So it's actually in our self-interest to collectively make sure that the Internet remains trustworthy. And trustworthy is not a hard thing. It's a soft boundary. It's not about absolute security. The way that we've say that can be best done is through collaborative security. And first point, it's about fostering confidence and protecting the opportunities that the Internet brings. So protecting those social and economic opportunities, and fostering sufficient confidence so that people don't walk away. There's not a point for a call for absolute security, but sufficient security. That comes down to collective responsibility. This is difficult. You know, the economics of collective responsibility are hard. But it does mean that everybody who has a role on the internet, whether you're a vendor, a coder, or a consumer, you have some responsibility. A responsible user of their PC will install a virus scanner. That is not only to protect yourself from ransomware and malware, but also that protects your external environment. Anything that we do here is based on evolution and consensus. This is not something that somebody can just impose on us. That's far too difficult. Whatever we do, we need to make sure that we protect fundamental properties and values. And with those fundamental properties and values, I mean the fundamental properties of the internet, the global reach, the permissionless innovation, and so on and so forth. We don't want a security solution that would kill permissionless innovation, where you first have to go through a long certification and a sign-off and a test and so on before you can put your application on the internet. That would be, I think, a bad outcome, because that stifles innovation. Innovation is still one of the motors. But we also want to make sure that we protect human rights when we do this. Protect privacy. Protect rights of association and all the other things. And the approach to do this is keeping a global perspective while acting locally. If you're in the IoT space, this means you have certain responsibilities. So let's get to things. IoT is a broad topic. And it's always difficult to catch the IoT in a specific context. You could say IoT is old wine in new bags because it's just connected computers. There's nothing really different about it. But it's basically the scale of connected smart objects. And connected smart objects without an interface, at least an interface for human use. It's not like a general purpose computer with a screen. It's not like a phone where you can interface with the user. It's more like a thing like this. This doesn't really have an interface, perhaps an on-off button, and I can pull the plug, but that would upset Jolie. Yeah, well, there is an interface here, and but that's not always the case. If you have a sensor in an industrial environment, you might not have that interface, or at least not at the extent, or a sensor network, or what have you. So, different pieces. It's about connectedness and about having a computer, basically. The NDSS is the Network and Distributed Systems Security Symposium. 2 years ago, in 2015, Bert Kaliski, the CTO of VeriSign, was in a workshop on emergent technologies. And he asked a bunch of questions around the deployment of smart objects. If you ship smart objects at scale, how do you maintain these things? Think about 100,000 identical objects that you ship. What are the things you have to think of? Identification, authentication, confidentiality, all these things. How do you do that? How do you do that for the data? How do you do that for the device? How do you guarantee the security at the distribution points of the data, the connection points? How do you authenticate these little things? How do you key them? Taking one key is probably not a good idea. If you configure them all with the same key, then You lose the key once, done deal. So best current practice, public keys with separate private keys for each device. How do you do that at scale and at cost? Application authentication. How can you be sure that the thing that runs on that little thing is actually the thing that the owner, the user, the producer, or whoever is in control of the device, and you really have to think about that? How do you authenticate that? So the trust relationships, cryptographic algorithms, really, how do you make those future-proof? If you put in a device for 20 years, how do you make sure that the crypto requirements hold up for 20 years? Denial of service attacks. How do you make sure that these devices are not used as a reflector or 100,000 machines can bring down time? We saw that. How do you track what's going on these devices? What are the threat indicators that you want to pay attention to? What are the security and stability considerations in this whole questions? How do you name these devices? How do you name the data? How do you name the interfaces? And I don't know about you, but I think that all these answers are not clear. And I get goosebumps when I say that, because that's scary. IAB, Internet Architecture Board, is that body that is affiliated with the ITF. They looked at architectural considerations for smart object networking. You wouldn't recognize the word IoT in here, but that's exactly what we're talking about. Essentially the same considerations. You have you sort of have general purpose computers that are built in stuff that are designed to do one thing. They're designed to measure traffic and turn a light green or red. But can these things be used beyond their design criteria? Yeah, of course, I hear somebody say, of course. What does that mean? How do you establish the trust in the object? Same question as the Bert Kalitzky talk. The lack of physical trust. Specifically, if you have identical devices, they are usually in places where the public can just reach them. You know, they're in the street, they might be in a building, but it's not very difficult to get access to them. And then you can do side channel analysis on the crypto, and you can scrape off the layers of the chips and do all the type of analysis that the very smart people that do. And specifically, if you have a bunch of identical devices with the same code in that, mind you, once you find the bug, you're there. And these things are long-lived. They live for 5 to 40 years, depending on battery, depending on what they do. And even if you think about cryptography, if you think about crypto agility, if you think about all these things, randomness comes at a price. Randomness is incredibly important for any cryptographic primitive. If you don't have good randomness, your cryptography is broken, you don't have encryption, you don't have authentication, you don't have nothing. Randomness is difficult. Most people don't know this. So they give some areas of responsibilities. Cryptographic primitives are things that really need attention. Random devices, but also new algorithms. Algorithms that withstand, for instance, quantum cryptography. Algorithms that are quantum proof. Those things you need to think of when you deploy for 40 years. You probably don't have to think about it when you deploy for 5 years, but when you deploy for 40 years, that's something to take into account. There's no end-to-end security on the internet. You have to build that in your application. Don't expect the network to deliver that. That's very complex. Layers and layers of specifications, and you really have to make sure that you understand what you're building on top of it, on top in these layers. And whatever you do, don't think you can design a security protocol by yourself. That's usually a very bad idea. Use something that is peer-reviewed, that is available. It's smarter to use a TLS stack than try to build an existing TLS stack and trying to build one for yourself. Implementation is actually difficult. You know, buffer overflows still happen, poor UI, usability problems, poor choice of hardware for the thing that you try to do. For instance, too small memory footprint so that you never can do a firmware upgrade or something like that. These are all choices you have to go through when you implement on and who knows it? I mean, am I preaching to the choir here or just looking around? Preaching to the choir? That makes me happy. Anyway, and the problem is that you work in a reality. Yeah? We want to ship, the business cases are there, the device constraints all come with a cost, the bigger device comes with a bigger cost, the use cases are pulling, there's high competition, and then you end up with the question, can you do responsible security on a 4-cent margin device? And this is the actual question. How do we solve for this? There are some practical recommendations in the RFC. I won't go over them. Can you? Yeah, you can get me a drink. A red wine. I mean, it's past 7, so I think I can responsibly do that. So, thinking about how. So these are practical recommendations, but that practical recommendations don't get us security. Specifically, not in that question of how can you do this responsibly on a low margin device, because the most security that we care about might actually be that perimeter security and you can shield it off, but how do you care about the security impact on others? That's a hard question. How do you take care that your devices don't leak private data? Security and privacy in this context are very, very tightly linked. It's the same side of the same coin, actually. And what I think happens at this moment is that there is a certain, thank you very much, that there is certain a raise of conscious, social discussion in society around what do we expect from these devices. And one of the things in which you can see that is by the number of frameworks, IoT frameworks that pop up. We're affiliated with the Online Trust Alliance since a few weeks. They've become an Internet Society initiative. They joined us, and this is a group of companies that care about trust in the internet, and they approach this from the business side. And they give a number of security principles, a number of someone's phone is doing something. User access, credentials, privacy considerations, and notifications. If you collect data, that you think about what happens if the data get breached. These are all questions that if you build a network of smart meters, whatever they measure, if you have sensors, you have to think about. What are the privacy implications of the data? Where do I store the data? How do I anonymize the data? How do I inform my users? How do I make sure that the users actually consent? How do I care of my users in terms of protecting their information? How do I give them control? These are all types of things that you have to think of. And the thing is that society is thinking with us. if you look in Europe, there is the GDPR. Who has heard of the GDPR? It's the General Data Regulation. I have it here in the bag. I can read it up. If you are doing business in Europe with Europeans and you don't take that serious, it can cost you up to 4% of annual revenue. And there's all kinds of expectations. Expectation of data transport, expectations of clear messaging to your customers, expectations of data portability. So what I'm trying to say is that in certain parts of the world, this discussion is going on. There is a social expectation, and in this case, that social expectation has been codified in regulation, that you treat data privacy in a certain way. That's not the US approach. The US approach is different, but there is also a social expectation that you treat data in a certain way. This morning I saw on the news, I turned on the telly and I saw on the news that there's a lawyer suing Bose because their headsets there's an app with that, and the app is collecting stuff, and that's being sent back, and that data is being collected somewhere. And he said, that's not fair game, I'm suing. So very interesting. In the consumer space, another example that I recently, that took place in Europe, is a doll. I believe it's called Gaia. Dolls is a kid's toy. You can talk to the doll, and it has speech recognition. Speech recognition sends data back to Nuance, I believe it is, the company that does that, and then does the analysis, and the doll does some funny answers. The German regulator came back hard and says, this is a spying device. This collects data with a wiretap, in essence, and sends it back to another state, across the borders. And the doll is forbidden. It's declared a spying device. So there is this social compact starting to exist around what do we expect from our devices. With privacy, this is specifically bubbling up, so to speak. With security, I bet that will be the same. So I think that is where we can have the discussion. I believe that before this balance means that when you develop devices that go online, you have the opportunity to take your responsibility, because that's a social expectation. But not only because it's a social expectation, because that social expectation might be codified in some way that comes back to hunt you if you don't do it yourself. Usually we call this self-regulation, by the way. And I think that the best way is to do this at the place where you can actually have an impact. So if you're a developer, make sure your code is reviewed, or you do the things that are needed. That still doesn't answer some of these very fundamental questions. It still doesn't answer how is there a standardized ways to do device upgrades over the air? In fact, there's not. And NTIA had a meeting today. As NTIA, or it's NTIA, yeah? Yeah. Where they're looking in a multi-stakeholder fashion at upgradability and protocols for that. How do you do upgrades of small devices? So that's sort of the context that I wanted to paint. We have some time for discussion, because I'd like to hear your. I have more questions than answers in this space. That should be clear. Yep. And that should be picked up by this thing, I guess.
Test. Yep.
Data Usage Act, or that one law that's being passed over there for the usage of the data on your slides? You were talking about the yeah, that slide. One back, one more.
This
You
one?
saw it saying in EMEA that there's a new legislation that's coming down on the usage of user data, detecting or our identity in the data and such.
No, I was only talking about the GDPR.
Okay.
I'm
I'm not very vetted in the US environment around it.
So
Okay, yeah.
It's my understanding that there's legislation being passed, for example, that I can't just get ads placed on my laptop based on my shopping patterns, say at Amazon, and that every site I go to, I get ads placed. That now there has to be some level of permission granted to do that.
Don't know the details about that.
Sorry? I don't know. I'd have to go look. There's a bunch of startup companies that are taking off around that in the UK. That are, because what it's trying to prevent is that all the ad blocking companies that are out there are building these ad blockers, so they'll stop the ads from being blocked, being posted, and in retrospect, if the ads are stopped, the internet will stop being for free because there's no way to get the cost recovery on it. And this act is trying to make sure that if the user's data is being used, that they're compensated for it somehow, whether it's a discount or some service or something, but there has to be a level of compensation. If you're just going to use my information, aggregate all their information for the benefit of a company, they have to share that benefit with us for our data. So basically encouraging us not to post ad blockers. And that, I don't know if, I can send you the document.
Yeah, this is actually in a blind spot for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah. I know that OTA OTA that just joined us is very interested in a healthy ad environment. The people who are affiliated with the Alliance care about a healthy ad environment, no blocking, responsible advertisement, and just for those reasons. Also making sure, for instance, that what do you do against malvertisement? People who place ad and have drive-by viruses in those, and so on and so forth.
Well, so this is in EU, so it's across the entire EU, but America's not signing up for it, and that's causing them a problem.
Right.
Because a lot of the companies that are advertising in Europe are US based.
But in the IoT space, I think you have to take into account that when you collect data, what happens with that data, and regulation will trickle down. The EU GDPR, I know a little bit more about that, but I'm not a lawyer. It's a really dense lawyer test. But the thing is, if you do business, if you have European customers, it does apply to you. And mind you, you very quickly have European customers. And I was having a discussion just this afternoon. Somebody said, here in the US, you've got two types of companies. One set of companies that says that's the gold standards, we want to operate according to that. And a set of companies that say we despise this. This is European stuff that is imposed on us. We don't like this. I frankly, within the Internet Society, we feel that if you deal with user data, you have to make sure that the user has control over what you hold for them. You're a steward of their data. That you take care of that responsibly, and in general, that you have an approach to privacy and security that is not compliance-based, but thinks about the impact that your actions have. With security, it's not sufficient to basically go to your compliance checklist. That doesn't reduce your risks, because the attackers know these compliance things. It's much better to have a security mindset Of course, you will have to reach a certain level of compliancy, but going through through an approach is often much better.
So thanks again for your talk. What about these disclosure requirements that really aren't happening in reality? So Uber just got caught with a company that went through some unsubscribe process. It rummaged through your emails, and then it used that information because you thought you were using them to unsubscribe, and then they sent the data to Uber. And the company said, well, gee, it's in our disclosure statement, you should have read it. And these disclosure statements are thousands of pages long, and you can't really do much. You want to spend your life reverse engineering them. And you go onto European websites and you get a message that says, well, the site uses cookies, but what do you do with that? So there's this kind of illusion that you're attempting to solve the problem, but it really doesn't get to the core of it.
Yeah, I see. Do you have a direct response to that?
Yeah, is it?
Can you wait for the mic?
Is it not the responsibility of larger government to deal with those things where essentially if you want to sign up for anything on the internet, you have to sign your life away. They subtly ask for stuff that would just give the whole house away. It's like the balloon with a little hole in it. Once that hole is picked, it's all over. Your security's gone. So that if there is going to be any form of real security, it would have to be by some sort of international or government decree that would say you can ask for this, you can ask for that, but not beyond it. And if you do ask for this, you have to ask in this way. Otherwise, just about everybody who offers you something free on the internet, it's not free. They want stuff, and they want plenty. And by the time you get done realizing what they actually get from you, you might decide you didn't want it after all. But it's too late.
Yeah, it's that's a well-known saying. If it's free and you don't know what the product is, then you are the product. That's so. This is, I think this is the tussle. The tussle is, what is the right amount of regulation? And in this specifically, I think it still applies to the rest of the internet as well. If you apply too much force, you stop innovation. There's all kinds of incentives and so on and so forth that make this a healthy economic environment with lots of drivers. If you don't apply enough force, then people walk away. People walk away from the internet. They walk away from the cookie walls. They stop giving you data. They don't trust payments on the internet. If you look at that report that I quoted, there are people who don't pay on the internet. They don't trust it anymore. So that's the effect. So the question is, perhaps I think regulation has a role, but it's not the only place where there is a role. I think that as people who are involved with this, that the set of companies that say this is actually the gold standard are much more likely to implement a self-regulation, saying this is the level of this is how we want to interact with our customers. This is how we want to treat them. This is how we and customers see this. Customers will at some point say this is something that we respect. We go to this company. So saying I have a certain level of security, I have a certain level of dealing with your privacy, I commit to a number of standards, I have my products reviewed and certified in some way or whatever, might actually give you a better angle on the market. In terms of if you look at this, something similar to this framework is now being developed by the Consumer Reports organization here in the US, where they say, what do we actually expect from devices that are sold in the consumer market? And I think that those are also ways to create economic incentives, because it's all about economic incentives around externalized risk. A data breach is an externalized risk. If data is lost, then the risk is with the persons about who that data is. It's their credit cards, it's their social identities, that type of stuff. So that, I think, is where things will play out. I actually am a believer in signaled self-behavior, so to speak. Where can you find examples of that? I think a good example is organic food. There's no reason why people should, there's no real reason why you pay a surplus on a tomato or a banana. It is this organic food sticker, this certification of this, you know, this was produced in a way that was responsible, that make people pay more. And I think that those type of signals might actually help to create market forces in this space. Another thing about regulation, because regulation is a tool, is that if you apply regulation, the danger is that you apply regulations for the problems of today and not for the problems of tomorrow. That makes it incredibly hard. And if we look at the IoT space, for instance, the consumer IoT space, I think that what you see there is a development that instead of having IoT devices that have their own app and their own thing, I think that within 5 years or so, you will see most of these IoT devices being in certain frameworks like Weave and HomeKit and all these other frameworks that are starting to exist. And if that happens, you have sort of central controls. You don't have a gazillion stacks, you have hub and spoke models, and perhaps more security because of that. So if you now step into the home automation piece and you don't let that play out in some way, you might actually end up in a place that you don't want. And so it's very hard to do this right with a crystal ball. Whatever happens, I think it's very important that the people who develop these type of things, the technologists that understand what is happening under the hood, that understand what it is to do crypto, that understand what a memory footprint of a device is, that understand the cost of production, that they are involved in these discussions just as much as people who care about their privacy and care about security. I'm looking at the time because I believe that
We still have a few more minutes for questions. So.
okay.
I have one.
Okay, and then I saw a few other hands.
Okay, let me just switch the camera to me. Okay. So my question is, there was some concern late last year about the digital object architecture thing being, which is, as I understand it, basically registering every single device in the world. Can you talk about how that might affect people developing new IoT products?
So this comes back to what type of naming architecture do we give to two objects. And the digital object identifier system is a way to identify objects. There are a number of concerns with it. First, it's the scalability of the system. If you look at the system, people often compare it to the DNS as a naming system. I don't think the naming system of the DNS might be applicable to literally devices. There might be other identifiers there that work. The DOI works with a resolution system that is not. It's not clear whether that has the same scalability properties as, say, the DNS, which has the, for now, fairly good scalability properties. The control over it is in the ITU, which is an international organization. So it's state-controlled, one could say. There's all kinds of questions that you have to ask yourself if you want to buy into that system around the governance of the identifier space, the governance of the resolution systems, and so on and so forth. So those are just open questions, I would say. You want to add to that, Jolly? Because I think it was a leading question.
No, I have to change all this stuff. Well, no, I mean, some people saw it as a threat to privacy and everything, that if basically if they can get a number on you, then they can identify your device, and, so,
Yep.
I mean, there was great worries about it in certain things.
So that has to do with questions around governance and who has access to control over putting the identifiers where and when, and whether that is also a barrier to innovation. Do you need to have such an identifier to be able to deploy in some countries? I do not know. Questions to be answered.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you feel about the upgrade issue, because to me that's the elephant in the room.
Yep.
I mean, companies don't last forever. And even simple existing things that have been around for years, like your home wireless access points, I bet you're not getting regular security updates after the first 3 or 4 months. And this goes back to that 4 cent profit per item thing. You can't do updates in perpetuity with that kind of cost metric. It's kind of scary because if we ignore this issue, then all this other stuff that we're talking about is kind of like immaterial, because we're all going to have these hundreds of little grenades in our homes, little internet grenades that are going to go off at any time.
So what's your own idea around that?
Well,
you've thought about this, obviously.
I think we have regulation coming our way.
And what do you think would good regulation look like?
I don't know, but I do know that over history, anytime a new piece of technology that threatens property and life, it gets regulated, and that's what these things are starting to do. We've found security flaws in pacemakers. So
I think that there's one pitfall that we have to watch out. IoT is not one thing. IoT is smart objects used in context. I think that already there is existing regulation in the medical sphere around safety of human life and so on and so forth. And that probably just applies as well to the steel pins that are crammed in your leg when you break it, as well as to a chip in a pacemaker. I don't know the details, I'm not a lawyer, but that is a heavily regulated space with, I guess, outcome principles, outcome-based. I think in the consumer space, this is completely different. Although, if you program a light that causes epileptic attacks, that already, no, well, this is an example. This really happens. You can do this. You can program a light bulb to start stroboscoping, and people get attacks from that. Or a fridge that causes your grandmother to die from salmonella. These are things that are not. So yeah, I think you're right. There's a balance between, do you actually need the IoT in that device? A coffee maker with a chipset in it, does it actually need a network, or does it just need to make coffee? And
that's the other side of the equation. We've spent the last 20 years aggressively attaching as many objects as possible to the internet, and maybe we're at the point where maybe we should back off a little bit, and maybe that's not the end goal, is to attach everything to the internet. It's like there's a limit.
And it might be that you say, okay, the convenience features that the network stack have are just, disabled at some point. That could be a thing.
That's
I do not know.
And also, this also comes back to your discussion about paying for organic food. Like, we're basically getting what we pay for right now. This is why things like wireless access points are so inexpensive, is because we don't put all of these protection and layers and support mechanisms into these objects. And if we did, it would be much more expensive.
So there's something that somebody brought up earlier today, and I'm conscious there are other questions. Have you heard of BrickerBot? Nobody? So this is a botnet that basically mirrors the Mirai botnet. The Mirai botnet that causes DOS attack. And instead of causing a DOS attack, it basically bricks the devices. If you are vulnerable to Mirai, and this botnet passes you by, you can throw away the device. So vigilantes doing something there that is, it's actually pretty interesting. Somebody's breaking your property. That's not a good thing. They're not accountable. That's not a good thing. On the other hand, social good that comes with that. I find this. I'm not giving this a thumbs up, but it raises some important questions.
Your slide did say self-regulating.
Huh?
That the internet was self-regulating.
Your
slide did say
that. Yeah. Well, that is
so
that.
we have ad blockers because malware.
I think that's more like people on the internet self-regulating each other. The internet is made of people, as I think. So.
That gentleman first, and then the other gentleman.
Okay. First, thank God for JTAG. That's number one. Nobody can brick my stuff. You can destroy the microcode, but you can always rebuild it. I think that perhaps the big scare everybody's living with is the fact that they don't code. They don't read code, they don't do code, and as a result, anybody who does code can do stuff they can't even understand. And they're stuck trusting them. It needs to be more spread out that people understand what the code is doing to them, for them, and about them.
And one of my coder friends, you know how technicians are among each other, once said, clue is an absolute constant. Clue is an absolute constant. You don't get more clue over more people. I don't know whether that is true. But there is something here. What is happening now, specifically in this consumer IoT thing, is that I claim that tech companies that have the coders, that people who read the code, who can do C, who understand stacks, who understand microcode, what have you, they're, I would say, people who produce these type of things, they're on the edge of taking good care of security for us. But now everybody becomes an IT company. If you were in the business of building fridges, dolls, or coffee machines, you're suddenly an IT company. You were a car company making absolutely great cars. Now you're a software company as well. And add to that network connectivity, and suddenly your threat vector gets from a kid that might choke on a doll's eye to kid that might be listened into because of privacy violations, or worse, because of an external attack. I think there is a scalability issue here, with all of the things becoming coded, becoming